This is the CBS Sunday Night News. Bill Plant reporting, good evening. Super Bowl 28 ended tonight in Atlanta as a football tragic comedy, with the Dallas Cowboys rallying to beat the Buffalo Bills 30-13. The Bills returned home as the only American pro team in any sport to lose the championship showdown 4 consecutive times.
The Buffalo Bills are one of the most punished franchises in the history of the NFL. On one hand, they've harbored countless Hall of Fame players and some of the best teams the league has ever seen. On the other, they have more singular bad moments than any other team I can think of off the top of my head. They've never been able to get wins when it's mattered most, and they've had some dark stretches, to say the least. My name's Caden Gier, and let's do a deep dive and tier list on some of the worst moments in Bills history. Before we get started, as always, these rankings are my opinion, and if you disagree, let me know down below. Be sure to like and subscribe as well if you're interested in football content. Let's get into it. 2017. The Buffalo Bills were officially 17 years deep into their infamous playoff drought, and partway through the first season of Coach Sean McDermott's tenure. Quarterback Tyrod Taylor had led the Bills to a 5-2 start to the season, but in Week 10, Buffalo played against the New Orleans Saints in a game where their offense simply could not stay on the field. Tyrod Taylor was ultimately benched in the fourth quarter, and rookie quarterback Nathan Peterman came in far too late to save a game that was already sitting at 47-3 towards the end of the fourth. The loss was so embarrassing for the Bills that they decided to let Nathan Peterman make his first NFL start. And so, on November 19th, 2017, against the Chargers, future NFL Hall of Famer Nathan Peterman put up an absolute legacy-defining performance. He started the game with a couple solid completions, but a ball bounced off the hands of Patrick DeMarco and right to a Chargers defender, and was ultimately returned for a touchdown. Okay, well, that wasn't Peterman's fault. Get him back out there. Well, there was another interception, and then another. Wow. Okay, this one was way worse. 3 interceptions in the first quarter. But the legend Peterman was not yet done. No way. 2 more interceptions came in the second quarter for a total of 5 in one half. The Peterman was on pace for NFL history, the first ever double-digit interception game. But sadly, no fun Coach McDermott pulled the plug and put Tyrod Taylor in for the second half in a game that would ultimately end 54-24. So this is a bit different from my Ravens list. I'm going to be starting in the B tier and having honorable mentions scattered through the video in the C tier. This game was frustrating and extraordinarily embarrassing for Bills fans everywhere, and feels like the perfect place to start out of the bottom of our B tier. The Bills started the 2004 season with a rough stretch under the duo of first-time head coach Mike Mularkey and recently acquired quarterback Drew Bledsoe. However, Buffalo turned things around, winning 9 of their final 11 games and clinched a winning record after a Week 16 blowout of the 49ers had them sitting at 9-6. Side note, this would be the only winning record Buffalo would secure between the 2001 and 2014 seasons. Yikes. Anyways, the stage was set for the final game of the Bills season, Bills versus Steelers at home in Orchard Park. The Steelers were a powerhouse in 2004 and had already gone 14-1 and secured the 1 seed leading up to this game. Great news for the Bills though, the Steelers rested their starters for this matchup, meaning all the Bills had to do was beat the Steelers' third stringers in a win-and-in game to make the playoffs. Well, unfortunately, those third stringers put on a fight and kept it close the whole game, even taking a lead for a significant portion until Steelers quarterback Tommy Maddox was intercepted in the third quarter for a pick 6, putting the Bills up 17-16. They had a chance to go up 20-16, but kicker Ryan Lindell missed the field goal, wide right. Well, we'll talk about that one later. Anyways, the Steelers responded with a field goal of their own, and then came the game breaker. Drew Bledsoe fumbled the ball right into the hands of James Harrison, and it was returned for a touchdown. The Steelers ended up going up 29-17, and the Bills couldn't overcome the deficit, humiliatingly being defeated by members of the Steelers' practice squad and eliminated from the playoffs in their own home stadium. This one's gonna go right above that last one in B. In 2018, the Bills drafted a quarterback who you will come to know over the course of this video if you don't know already, named Josh Allen. In Allen's rookie year, the Bills went 6-10, but Allen stepped his game up the following year to make his first playoff game and help lead Buffalo in their second playoff berth of the 21st century. The Bills entered the playoffs as the 5 seed, going to Houston to face the Texans in the wild card round of the playoffs. For the Bills, the game got off to a fantastic start as they went up 13-0 in the first half and nearly went up 20-0 after the opening kickoff of the second half was originally called a touchdown, was controversially called back. Some of Bills Mafia is still very mad about this call to this day, but I think it was the right call, and it seems pretty obvious Carter gave himself up. Anyways, they did end up scoring a field goal and taking it to 16-0 and improving their win chances to 97%, but the Texans started to storm back. A woman respecter touchdown for Houston and 2-point conversion brought it back to a 1-score game, but the Bills still had control. That was until what happened next. Allen attempted a rush up the middle and unfortunately fumbled the ball right back to Houston. The craziest part was that upon watching this play back in slow motion, Allen just dropped the ball before the defender even touched him. It was insane. This play gave the Texans a jolt of momentum and they surged back to tie the game up. The Bills couldn't get anything done after that as Allen was sacked on a 4th and 27, although they did get one more chance to score, but Allen tried his absolute best to lose the game for them on a boneheaded lateral, then the game went to overtime. In overtime, each team got a possession before Buffalo punted back to Houston, where the respecter of woman would convert a 3rd and 18 and then pull off one of the craziest plays I've ever seen out of his ass. Man, remember when he was good? The Texans kicked a field goal and the people of Buffalo watched in agony as their playoff win drought extended to 25 years. Another solid entry for the B tier. The year was 2020, and the Bills had done it. They ended one of the longest playoff win droughts in NFL history.
It took a quarter of a century, and the Buffalo Bills have won a playoff game.
It took 25 years, but Josh Allen had finally brought the Bills hope once more, defeating the Colts in the wild card round in an intense game that came down to the wire. The following week, they took down the Ravens in a dominant defensive win, and just like that, the Bills were one win from a Super Bowl. The only problem was the team they would face. Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, the team that was hosting their 3rd straight AFC Championship and looking to win their 2nd Super Bowl in a row. This was the first of 4 times that the Bills would meet the Chiefs, all 4 of which will be covered in this video, don't you worry. Buffalo came to Arrowhead seeking a Lombardi trophy to make up for decades of suffering to their fans, and things started out well with a 9-0 lead for Allen and the Bills. The Chiefs swiftly took the lead back following a sequence of 3 straight touchdowns, and the game went into halftime at 21-12. The Bills kicked another field goal, but the Chiefs scored a field goal and a touchdown of their own, and then came a crucial mistake. Allen threw an interception into double coverage that bounced right into a Chiefs defender's hands, and the Chiefs took a 38-15 lead that Buffalo was never able to recover from. But to be honest, this game never really felt close at any point. The Chiefs thoroughly outplayed the Bills in every way, and it seemed Buffalo just wasn't ready for the Super Bowl stage yet. Optimism was high though, since the playoff win drought was now over, the Bills were true contenders for the first time since the 90s, and Josh Allen had cemented himself as an absolute superhuman star. The future would surely be bright for the young, talented Bills, which is why I put this one lower than others on the list. This one will close out the B tier on our list.
It's been a long time. It's been 13 years. But Monday Night Football is back in Buffalo.
2007 brought the first Monday Night Football game to Buffalo in 13 years, a game in which Trent Edwards and the 1-3 Bills would face Tony Romo and the undefeated Cowboys. To start the game, Romo was picked off by George Wilson, who returned the play for a touchdown, taking the Bills up 7-0. The Cowboys got the ball back, and once again, Romo was picked. The Bills had a chance to score, but Bills legend Marshawn Lynch was stopped on 4th and 1, giving the ball back to the Cowboys. The Cowboys scored a touchdown, and the Bills answered with a field goal before Tony Romo was once again picked off, this time off of a deflection into the end zone for a second pick six to put the score at 17-7. Did it end there? Nope. Next drive, Romo was intercepted again, but Bills kicker Ryan Lindell missed a field goal. The Cowboys did score their own field goal, but on the kickoff, return man Terrence McGee took the ball back 103 yards to the house for a touchdown. Although Buffalo's offense wasn't playing their best football, at this point the Bills seemed firmly in control of the game. It would take a generational meltdown to lose this. Over the next few drives, the Cowboys kicked a field goal and after that would get the ball back. Romo fumbled, turning the ball back over to Buffalo again. This was the 5th Cowboys turnover this game, and the announcer said,
"They're on the verge of scoring the biggest win probably in a decade."
The Bills once again did nothing though, as Edwards was intercepted in the red zone for what would have been a touchdown if the defender hadn't been hawked down by Lee Evans.
Flacco fires end zone.
Caught! Touchdown! Lee Evans! No! He dropped it!
But you won't believe what happened next. Romo committed his 6th turnover of the game. Excuse me. Tony Romo committed his 6th turnover of the game, throwing a pick in the end zone. You cannot make this shit up. The Cowboys would get the ball back, and what happened next will haunt Bills fans forever. 24 seconds left on the clock. Cowboys are down by 8. Touchdown. The Cowboys needed a 2-pointer to tie it, but weren't able to convert, meaning the Cowboys were down 2 with just 20 seconds left. The game was over, except the Cowboys got the onside kick. 13 seconds on the clock, and 2 throws later, the Cowboys were in field goal range. Nick Folk kicked a field goal, and it had seemed the game was over. But apparently, the Bills called a timeout before the kick, so he had to try again, and the second kick was also good. This was the biggest game for Buffalo in years, and the Cowboys scored 9 points in 20 seconds, and the Bills lost in humiliating fashion despite forcing 6 turnovers, crushing Bills fans' hearts in the midst of their dark ages. Despite this not being a playoff game, I'd say it's pretty reasonable to have this one begin the A tier.
Barbecue chicken alert.
First honorable mention, the Hail Murray. The Bills and Cardinals played in week 9 of the 2020 season, and the Bills were up 4 with just 11 seconds remaining on the clock. Somehow, Cardinals quarterback Kyler Murray chucked up a prayer to DeAndre Hopkins in the end zone, and he managed to catch it in a play that was the first walk-off Hail Mary to win a regular season game since the Motown Miracle. Ouch. The Bills won 13 games that year though, so there's not too much to be upset about, which is why this is an honorable mention. In 1986, the Bills seemed completely hopeless. They were coming off of back-to-back seasons as the worst team in the entire league, going 2-14 twice in a row. A new spark of life seemingly came to them when they drafted quarterback Jim Kelly and hired coach Marv Levy, but once again, they fell flat, finishing the year 4-12. A couple years later though, the Bills found themselves looking dangerous. Their young core was beginning to amount to something. In 1988, after years of failure, they found themselves in the AFC Championship, which they lost to the Bengals, but it was a step in the right direction regardless of the loss. Hopes were high when the Bills once again made the playoffs in 1989, as they entered the divisional round against the Cleveland Browns red hot after blowing out the Jets 37-0 the week prior. This game against the Browns was a high-intensity back-and-forth game with huge play after huge play. A 90-yard kickoff return touchdown, drama to spare, and a play in which Bills wide receiver Don Beebe landed on his head like he got hit with a tombstone by The Undertaker. It was nuts, and I won't talk about it in detail, but please watch the highlights. Where the game really started coming down to the wire though was when the Browns blocked a Bills extra point, meaning the Bills needed a touchdown to keep the game alive rather than a field goal while the score sat at 26-30. Jim Kelly took them into scoring range on a 74-yard drive where Buffalo converted not 1 but 2 fourth downs, and just like that, there were 12 seconds left in the fourth quarter. Then it happened. Kelly threw a beautiful pass to Ronnie Harmon in the end zone. It hit his hands, and that should have been the game right there. But come on, you know the Bills at least a little bit by now. Harmon dropped the pass. The Bills had one more play to to try to win the game, but unfortunately, Kelly's pass was intercepted by Clay Matthews, which concluded an all-time classic playoff game. Don't worry though, this loss was rough, but we'll get back to Jim Kelly and the crew soon enough. This will be our second entry into the A tier.
Barbecue chicken alert. Barbecue chicken alert.
Another honorable mention, this time a very different one, the White Bronco incident. You've probably heard about this. So I tried to restrict the Ravens tier list when I did it to exclusively football-based moments, but to make a Bills suffering tier list, you have to mention this, even if it's just as an honorable mention, since it isn't a football game. Former Bills star running back O.J. Simpson was supposed to turn himself in to be arrested on suspicion of 2 murders on June 17, 1994. He did not, however, and what ensued was a 2-hour-long, low-speed police chase on the highway in a white Ford Bronco. 95 million people watched the event unfold live, as O.J. was one of the most famous people in America at the time, and the chase concluded at O.J.'s house where he surrendered after several hours of negotiation. Bills fans watched in horror that day as one of the greatest players in franchise history had his legacy ruined forever. This wouldn't be the last time a white Bronco gave the Bills nightmares, though. Enter Bo Chapman Nix. Oh, Bo, my Bo, where do I even start? My glorious, well, this is a Bills video. Let's talk about the Bills. We're coming all the way back to present day with this one, so Bills fans, sorry to pour salt in the wound, but this one absolutely has to be addressed. It was 2025, and the Bills and Josh Allen found themselves in the playoffs again in a year where the AFC was wide open. No Mahomes, no Lamar, no Joe Burrow. Buffalo was far and away the favorite to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. And after beating the red-hot Jags in the wild card, that seemed like it could be the case. But on January 17th, 2026, the Bills traveled to Mile High Stadium to play the 1-seed Broncos, and everything went nuts. Josh Allen threw a short touchdown to take a 7-3 lead in the first quarter. But shortly after, James Cook fumbled the ball back to the Broncos, who went on to score after Bo Nix threw a touchdown to an offensive lineman. At the end of the second quarter, Nix threw another touchdown to go up 17-10, and the Bills had about 20 seconds to make something happen. Josh Allen then made one of the most absolutely boneheaded plays I have ever seen, throwing a lateral to a ghost and gifting Denver 3 points before the half. This would come back to haunt the Bills. Allen wasn't done yet though. He was hungry for the win, and so he helped his team by fumbling again on the second play of the third quarter. Wow, this can't possibly get worse, can it? Well, no, not right now. The Bills scored another touchdown and the score sat at 23-17 before Bo Nix was intercepted, giving the Bills another shot. Nothing good can last though, and Allen threw a Philly with extra cheese into double coverage, and the turnover fest continued. The Bills would score twice more, going up 27-23. Bo Chapman Nix did what he does best and threw a glorious touchdown to take the lead. Allen had one more chance to win it, and while they made their way down the field, he overthrew Dawson Knox on what would have been a game winner, and so they settled for 3. Overtime. Broncos couldn't get much done, so they punted. Then came the moment. Allen looks for Brandin Cooks deep. He's one-on-one. It looks like he's got the ball, and the game is in the bag. But somehow, Jaquan McMillan comes up with the ball, and it's ruled an interception. This became one of the most controversial calls among non-ball knowers in recent NFL history, with many claiming it was a clear catch. But I honestly feel like a lot of coping was going on, no offense, and it's pretty obvious to anyone who has an understanding of the NFL rulebook that it was an interception. Just like that, a few plays later, the Broncos kicked the game-winning field goal right after the city of Buffalo committed a ritualistic blood sacrifice to destroy Bo Nix's ankle because they knew he was too powerful to be stopped any other way. The Bills fell short once again in the easiest path to the Super Bowl they've had since drafting Allen. And he had an extremely sad-to-watch press conference after the game where he cried a good bit.
It's extremely difficult. I feel like I let my teammates down tonight. Just missed opportunities throughout the game. It's been a long season. I hate how it ended, and it's it's going to stick with me for a long time.
I think Allen is one of the greatest and most electric players in the entire NFL, and easily in the running for best quarterback in the league. With that being said, this loss legitimately falls on him and his 4 turnovers above anyone else, making it an even tougher loss to swallow for Bills Mafia. Head coach of 9 years, Sean McDermott, was also fired after this game. A third entry right here for the A tier. Wait a second. Wide right 2? The fuck is wide right 1? Well, I guess we'll never know. Anyways, January 21st, 2024 marked the third meeting between quarterbacks Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. We talked about the first meeting earlier, and we'll get to the second and fourth in a minute. Anyways, before this day, Patrick Mahomes had literally never started a single road playoff game in his entire career, which is undeniably extremely impressive. However, during this season, the Chiefs looked mortal for the first time in Mahomes' career, which is how they ended up playing on the road in Buffalo in the divisional round. This also sparked some strange theories that Patrick Mahomes wouldn't be able to perform on the road in the playoffs, which was kind of ridiculous at the time and is even more so with the benefit of hindsight. So, like most Chiefs-Bills classics, this one really got interesting in the second half. Allen did run in a couple touchdowns in the first half though, and the Bills were up 17-13 entering the third quarter. Both teams exchanged touchdowns, then an Isaiah Pacheco touchdown run had the Chiefs up 27-24 in the fourth quarter. The Bills got the ball back, and to this day, I still genuinely cannot believe what happened next. At their own 30-yard line, the Bills faced a 4th and 5 and lined up for a punt. Let me repeat, their own 30. Oh my God, okay. Not only... Sorry, this play pisses me off so bad. Oh my God. Not only did they not punt, they ran a fake out of the punt formation. Surely they would give the ball to someone who's qualified to be running a play of such great importance, right? Well, no, we're actually going to give it to Damar Hamlin, the third string safety who literally suffered a cardiac arrest and died on the football field 1 year earlier before being resuscitated. What Damar did, look, no disrespect, was undeniably impressive, and I will always respect him for coming back to the NFL, but this was one of the most downright fucking stupid play calls I've ever seen in my entire life. I have seen this referred to as the Make-A-Wish punt, and that feels very fitting. And somehow, this wasn't the worst moment of this game. Thankfully, contrary to what in my opinion, semi-justified crash out may have implied, that play call didn't actually matter that much, since Clyde Edwards-Helaire fumbled the ball back to the Bills on the 1 yard line. Awesome, now my glorious Pookie Josh will have a chance to, nope, never mind, 3 and out. Okay, well, at least the Chiefs didn't score. The Bills got the ball back with 8 minutes left on the clock. All they needed was one score to either win it or take the game to overtime. Buffalo started driving, and then we got another entry into the Josh Allen carries the ball like a loaf of bread and fumbles it saga. But by some kind of divine miracle, the Bills got it back because God loves to play with the feelings of Bills fans. A few plays later, there were under 2 minutes left on the clock, and the Bills were held to a 4th and 10. So they lined up for a field goal to take it to overtime. But every Bills fan over the age of 35 suddenly felt a disturbance in the force. And then it happened. Tyler Bass, no good. Wide right, the 2 most dreaded words in Western New York. The Bills had fallen short to the Chiefs in the playoffs for the 3rd straight time. And this one will close out our A tier.
Barbecue chicken alert. Barbecue chicken alert.
Honorable mention 3. In a 2021 game against the Titans, the Bills had a 4th and 1 on Tennessee's 3-yard line. Instead of taking the field goal and bringing the game to overtime, Sean McDermott decided to go for the win and attempt a 4th down conversion. Josh Allen slipped and fell on the play, however, ending the game and giving the Titans the win. This one wasn't bad enough to include on the main list, but multiple Bills fans I know said this one still frustrated them to this day, so I wanted to include it somewhere. 1 year later, and we're once again back in a Bills-Chiefs playoff matchup, this time an AFC Championship bout in Arrowhead Stadium. This was the fourth meeting of these two teams in a span of 5 years in the playoffs, all three prior to this going in favor of the Chiefs. Both teams were complete powerhouses this year, but many thought this would finally be the year that Allen and the Bills could break through and take down their most hated playoff rival. The Bills had beaten the Chiefs in the regular season not so long before, so it seemed like it could definitely happen again. Well, this game was awesome if you weren't a Bills fan, and once again, the fourth quarter was full of drama. 5 touchdowns and 3 lead changes in the first half alone. The Bills failed a 2-point conversion attempt on their last touchdown of the half, which is important to remember. Buffalo scored on their first possession of the second half as well on an awesome James Cook 4th down dive, but once again were unsuccessful on the 2-point conversion. Buffalo ended up getting the ball back and ran a tush push on 4th and 1. They'd already run a few tush pushes in this game, so the Chiefs were expecting it, but it seemed like Allen converted. However, controversially, the play was called short, Chiefs ball. Now, watching this play live, I was almost certain that this was a first down. It certainly looks like one at this angle, right? Well, it's much less obvious from other angles, and to be overturned, there has to be clear and obvious evidence that suggests he converted. This became a huge deal among Bills Mafia, and unlike the interception call from earlier, this one truly was pretty ambiguous. The call stood, however, and that was that. There was still plenty of game time left, and Buffalo would have their chances. Both teams exchanged touchdowns again, as a Chiefs field goal set the score to 32-29. One drive left for the Bills, a potential Josh Allen legacy drive. However, the Bills decided for some godforsaken reason to run a screen to Amari Cooper on 3rd and 10, and as you'd expect, it didn't do much. Another horrific play call against the Chiefs. So the Bills' season came down to a 4th and 5. Allen dropped back, got pressured, and let one go. It hit Dalton Kincaid in the hands, and he dropped it. Another drop. Wow. That was it. Just like that, Allen and the Bills had been bested by Mahomes for the 4th straight time. The only time in NFL history a quarterback has gone 0-4 against another quarterback in the postseason. It was so familiar. Another close, amazing game with Allen drawing the short end of the stick. Yeah, this one definitely is going to open up the S tier. It's crazy we're already to S and we still have like 6 more entries left to go. Remember our friend from earlier in the video, Jim Kelly? Well, we're going to get back to him. But first, a quick history lesson. For those of you unaware and who didn't understand the intro of this video, the early 1990s Bills were one of the most unique teams in NFL history. From 1990 to 1994, they were consistently one of the, if not the best team in the NFL every single year. They had it all. Marv Levy at head coach, Kelly at quarterback, Andre Reed at receiver, Thurman Thomas at running back, and Bruce Smith at defensive end, just to name a few. Every single one of those guys is a Hall of Famer. Coach Levy also introduced a new version of an offense that changed the NFL as we know it, the no-huddle or K-gun offense. The scheme essentially revolved around playing an entire game like a hurry-up drill, meaning the Bills wouldn't huddle at all, or if they did, very quickly. This would cause the defense to be unable to make any substitutions and would result in exhausted defenders and simple coverages on every play. It was almost like a cheat code, and was one of the main reasons the Bills' offense was so dominant from 1990 to 1994. With their super team and super scheme, Buffalo did something that hasn't been done by any other team. They made 4 back-to-back Super Bowls. However, in heartbreaking fashion, they also became the only team to lose 4 straight Super Bowls. I genuinely think it has been forgotten a bit over time just how crazy this was. The chances of Buffalo going 0-4 in the big game with the team they had is unthinkably low. So how in the world did it happen? Well, we'll be discussing all 4 of those Super Bowls before the end of this video. I ranked them by order of least to most painful, so they will be out of order, which is why I wanted to give you all that background. Okay, back to the incident. Super Bowl 26 was the second of Buffalo's 4 Super Bowl losses, and in my opinion, the least painful. During the 91 season, the K-gun offense was as dominant as ever. So much so that running back Thurman Thomas won the NFL MVP award that year. They were second in nearly every offensive category to only Washington, the team they'd go on to face in the Super Bowl. Despite their offensive dominance, though, Buffalo had a glaring issue. With defensive end Bruce Smith missing most of the season, their defense was flat out bad. They were second worst in the league by yards allowed and bottom of the pack in almost every other stat, including sacks. The legendary offensive trio of Kelly, Thomas, and Reed were enough to make up the difference, though, and led Buffalo to a 13-3 record. However, in the AFC Championship, Buffalo barely squeaked by against Denver, winning 10-7. Their offense was completely bottled up, and this gave Joe Gibbs, head coach of the Skins, a great starting point to devise a game plan to emulate what Denver had done on defense. Well, let's just say his plan was a success. When Buffalo and Washington met in the big game, by halftime, the game already seemed pretty uncompetitive as the Skins led 17-0. And then on the first play of the third quarter, Jim Kelly had his pass intercepted and taken back for a pick six, making the lead 24-0. It seemed the game was completely out of reach, and that would turn out to be correct. Kelly was intercepted 4 times, and the final score was 37-24, but the scoreboard was deceiving. The game was never close at any point, and 2 of the 3 Bills touchdowns came in garbage time when Washington was basically just running down the clock. Easily an S-tier rank for this one.
Barbecue chicken alert. Barbecue chicken alert.
Another honorable mention, the Leodis McKelvin fumble. After Tom Brady missed the entire 2008 season with injury, the Bills and their arch-rival Patriots played in Week 1 of the 2009 season. The Bills held a 24-19 lead with less than a minute left in the game when kick returner Leodis McKelvin fumbled the ball back to the Patriots immediately inside Bills territory, allowing New England to score and win the game. This was in the midst of a streak where Brady and the Pats would beat Buffalo 15 straight times, and the Patriots went 34-4 against the Bills between 2001 and 2019. Back to the Super Bowls, ladies and gentlemen, the 4th of Buffalo's 4 Super Bowl losses, Super Bowl 28. Somehow, someway, this is only 5th from the top of this list. We still have 2 more Super Bowls to get to. Buffalo will never cease to amaze me. Anyways, for reference of how bad it was to be a Bills fan at this time, it's reported that a fan who ran into Coach Marv Levy literally started begging him to sabotage the team to prevent them from going to a 4th straight Super Bowl. He said to Levy in an audibly distressed tone, quote, "I can't take it. I can't go to work on Monday if we don't win the game. It's tearing me up. I can't handle it." So yeah, you know things are bad when your own fans don't want you to go to the Super Bowl. Buffalo made it regardless though in a year where the team secured the number 1 seed, and the stage was set for a Cowboys vs. Bills rematch of the previous year's Super Bowl. Things started out rough for the Cowboys, with Aikman making several mistakes and throwing an interception as the Bills went up 13-6 by the half. It seemed to have finally been time for the Bills to get that long-awaited Super Bowl win, until it didn't. You see, Buffalo got in their own head. According to reports, the players grew paranoid during halftime. They were just waiting for something to go wrong, and that right there was the moment they lost the game. They didn't believe that it was even possible for them to win regardless of the lead, and it showed. Just seconds into the second half, Thurman Thomas fumbled a ball that was taken back the other way for a touchdown, and from there the Cowboys didn't look back. Emmitt Smith ran and ran and ran on the Bills' defense while the Bills' offense was stuffed on every single drive. In the blink of an eye, the scoreboard read 30-13, and the Cowboys had won their 2nd straight Super Bowl. 0 points for Buffalo in the second half, and a 4th straight Super Bowl loss. How in the world does it get worse than this? Well, I'd argue the Bills' previous bout against the Cowboys was worse. Much worse. We'll put this one right above the last on our tier list. In the 1992 season, Buffalo once again had a star-studded roster with 12 Pro Bowlers and were the 2nd best offense in the league statistically. However, the Bills fell short of the AFC East title after they lost their final game of the season to the Houston Oilers, entering the playoffs as a wild card. To make matters even worse, Jim Kelly sustained an injury during the Oilers game that would keep him out through at least the first 2 weeks of the playoffs. And just like that, Bills fans had lost all hope once again. Buffalo headed to Houston to face that same Oilers team that cost them a division title, and it started terribly. Without Jim Kelly, the Bills' offense could only muster a single field goal in the first half, and Warren Moon and the Oilers jumped out to a halftime lead of 28-3. Things got even worse coming out of the half as backup quarterback Frank Reich was intercepted on his first pass of the quarter, which was taken back for a pick six. But suddenly, something just clicked. The Bills rallied for 5 unanswered touchdowns, 3 of which were to Andre Reed, and just like that, Buffalo had pulled off the greatest and largest comeback in the history of the NFL. The comeback was so unbelievable, the game fittingly was given the nickname The Comeback. For a team that was coming off of back-to-back Super Bowl losses and an injury to their Hall of Fame quarterback, the city and the fans needed this. All they wanted was one more shot, and through what almost seemed like some kind of miracle, that shot would come to them. The Bills went on to crush the number 1 seed Steelers without both Jim Kelly and Thurman Thomas, and then when their stars on offense returned, they beat their division rival Dolphins in the championship. This was it, their 3rd Super Bowl in a row, and their chance to avenge their previous Super Bowl losses against this up-and-coming, unproven Dallas Cowboys team. This was easily the most magical run in Bills history. It seemed Buffalo was destined to finally win the bowl. What followed was a nightmare. Buffalo took an early 7-0 lead after a blocked punt set up a Thurman Thomas touchdown, and the game turned quickly. The Cowboys forced and capitalized on several turnovers, including a strip sack and an interception that were both returned for touchdowns. Buffalo struggled with mistakes in the first half, committing even more turnovers, and went into halftime down 28-10. Buffalo did cut the lead to 31-17 at one point, but the Cowboys just kept on pounding, and the Bills committed turnover after turnover. In the blink of an eye, Dallas was up 52-17, and it set in that the Bills were really about to lose their 3rd straight Super Bowl. It was heartbreaking. The Bills committed a Super Bowl record 9 turnovers and didn't look ready for the moment at all as they helped kickstart the Dallas Cowboys dynasty with the complete blowout loss. And just like that, a 3rd Super Bowl has hit the S tier.
Barbecue chicken alert. Barbecue chicken alert.
Honorable mention, during a 2023 game against the Russell Wilson-led Broncos, the Bills held a lead of 22-21 as Denver lined up to attempt a game-winning field goal. Will Lutz lined up from 41 yards out and missed the field goal as Bills fans began to celebrate. But there was a problem. A flag was thrown. The Bills had 12 men on the field during the field goal attempt. An extremely poor coaching mistake, which meant the Broncos would get to try the field goal again. Side note, Peyton Manning's reaction to this will never not be funny to me.
12 men on defense.
12 men on defense. Oh my goodness.
The second field goal attempt was good, and the Bills dropped to 5-5 with the final score being 24-22 as Buffalo was booed off the field. The year was 1999, and Buffalo had lost the vast majority of their starters from their days of Super Bowl dominance. Jim Kelly was gone, and so was Coach Marv Levy, but Thurman Thomas, Andre Reed, and Bruce Smith remained, all of whom were in their final year with the Bills. With their aging core, it was clear to the entire team that if they wanted to have any shot of making another Super Bowl, they'd have to do it this year. The Bills went 11-5 in '99 thanks to a top-ranked defense and the solid play of veteran quarterback Doug Flutie. The Bills locked up a spot in the playoffs by the final week of the season, and they sat their starters. Quarterback Rob Johnson started that final meaningless game and played extremely well, but most people thought nothing of it. Entering their first-round matchup against the Tennessee Titans, though, Bills coach Wade Phillips did the unthinkable. He benched Flutie for Johnson in the most important game of their season. It was unbelievable. Flutie had led the team for 2 straight years after the departure of Jim Kelly and even secured a Pro Bowl nomination. Regardless, the decision was made and the masses were completely shocked. Well, the decision wasn't backed up at all. Johnson struggled in the first half against Tennessee, and the Titans led 12-0 at the half. However, the Bills rallied in the second half, taking a 13-12 lead after a failed 2-point conversion and 2 touchdowns. The Titans took the lead back with 1:48 left on the clock after a field goal, but the Bills responded, kicking a field goal of their own with just 15 seconds remaining. The Titans were almost certainly done, barring some kind of miracle. Well, I'll play what happened next for you.
And a possibility for a play.
Dyson and Bird are deep. Taken by Neal. He gives it to Wycheck. Wycheck, that looked like a forward pass. Taken by Dyson. Dyson down the sideline. Dyson's going to go all the way. And there is no flag.
It was unbelievable. Bills fans screamed in agony and yelled, forward pass, to no avail. The Titans had one prayer of a play to win the game, and somehow they managed to score a touchdown. After extensive review, the play was ruled as a forward pass, and the Titans were declared the winners of the game. This was easily one of the craziest endings to a game in NFL history, and it seemingly all came down to the Bills' decision to bench Flutie. Rob Johnson could only muster 130 passing yards, 0 touchdowns, and 3 turnovers during the game. And while this game itself was absolutely nuts, the fallout of it was even crazier. The immediate aftermath saw the aforementioned Hall of Famers Reed, Thomas, and Smith all released shortly after the game, signaling a complete shift to a new era of Bills football. With that move, every single player and staff member from the Bills' Super Bowl runs was now gone. Not so long after, Coach Wade Phillips was fired as well, and what followed was unprecedented. Most NFL fans remember this game just for the sheer absurdity of the miracle, but Bills Mafia remembers it for something else. This play single-handedly kicked off the Buffalo Bills' dark age. 17 years. Buffalo went 17 years without a playoff appearance. Many fans call it the curse of Doug Flutie, supposedly karma for the decision to bench the fan-favorite quarterback before such an important game. Those 17 years were horrific for Bills fans. I mentioned it earlier, but during that span, Buffalo only had 2 winning seasons. Bills Mafia lost hope. They needed a hero badly, and 18 years later, he came. You already know being on the receiving end of a miracle has to go in S+, and we still have 2 more left to go.
Barbecue chicken alert. Barbecue chicken alert.
Final honorable mention, the Stevie Johnson drop. This one sucked for Bills fans, but a huge part of it was just funny. In a 2010 game against the Steelers, Ryan Fitzpatrick threw a deep ball to wide receiver Stevie Johnson in overtime. The pass would have easily been a game winner, but Johnson dropped it, and the Bills lost the game. Johnson then went on Twitter and blamed God himself for the drop. Not joking. This will never not be hilarious to me. Let me know down below if you remember reading this tweet. Bills fans, you already know what's coming, so let's just rip off the Band-Aid. By 2021, the Bills were pretty well established as a serious Super Bowl contender. After nearly 2 decades of mediocrity, Josh Allen had established himself as an elite quarterback by the 3rd year of his career and helped lead the Bills to back-to-back division titles. They also led the NFL in point differential in 2021 and were fresh off of a 47-17 beatdown of their most hated rival, the New England Patriots, in the wild-card round of the playoffs. I mentioned earlier in this video that Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes have met 4 times in the playoffs. This was the second of those 4 times, and quite frankly, one of the greatest football games ever played. The Bills came to Arrowhead for the 2nd straight playoffs and took the field first. They opened up the game with a score on 4th down by Singletary, and after a huge Mahomes run, the Chiefs responded with their own touchdown, another rush by Pat Mahomes. Each team exchanged some punts, and then a touchdown catch by Byron Pringle put KC up by 7. Of course, the Bills scored right back with the Gabe Davis touchdown, though. By the way, keep Davis's name in the back of your mind for a minute. Opening up the second half, the Chiefs took a 9-point lead following a field goal and then a McCole Hardman touchdown. Notorious women's rights activist Harrison Butker missed the extra point, though, his second missed kick of the game. Then boom, just 1 play later, Gabe Davis was in the end zone again after a beautiful throw from Allen. Another exchange of punts for both teams, except Tyreek Hill returned one for a huge gain. Casey kicked another field goal, Allen converted an insane 4th down, and then another for a touchdown to Gabe Davis to give Buffalo the lead with just 1:54 on the clock. I'd like to mention now that this game included the craziest final 2 minutes of any game ever. Anyways, just a few plays later, this happened.
Down the middle. It's Hill in the open. Cuts it upfield. He might be gone. He is. Kansas City takes the lead with a minute to go.
KC had the lead with just a minute left. Allen had to make magic happen. This was his defining legacy moment right here. Could he do it? Could he take down the Chiefs dynasty on their own turf? Well,
down the middle to the end zone, and there it is!
He had done it. Allen had vanquished his demons, and the Bills were on their way to the Super Bowl. Bills fans screamed with joy, and Arrowhead Stadium fell quiet. At that moment, the Bills were sure they were going to punch a ticket to the Super Bowl, as the clock read 13 seconds.
Can't believe that defense got beaten up like that.
Here's Hill. They're going to have a chance.
And we call timeout quickly.
They actually have a chance to get Bucker in field goal range here. Hail Mary kicks. Got to throw it right away, right now to someone in the middle.
Down the middle. Oh my goodness! It's going to be a 48-yard attempt. Only 48 yards. That's what it'll be.
Somehow, perhaps by devil magic, Kansas City tied the game. They went 44 yards in just 10 seconds before kicking the field goal. Bills fans felt in their hearts what was about to happen. They hoped and prayed as visions of past playoff losses came over their heads, but nothing could save them from the wrath of Mahomes. Overtime came, KC won the coin toss, and it was clear that Buffalo was never going to get a chance to touch the ball. They didn't. The Chiefs scored, and that was that. Thus, the legend of 13 seconds was born. The loss for Buffalo was unfathomably awful. With 13 seconds left on the clock, the Bills had a 98% chance to win this game, and somehow they lost in a way only the Bills could. Their defense absolutely sold, and I believe this loss is the worst for the Bills this entire century. It's so clear that after this game, Buffalo began to believe no matter what they did in any playoff game, something would go wrong to cause them to lose. And to this day, that has rung true. Also, Leslie Frazier was genuinely an agent of Satan. That is all. This is our second entry into the S+ tier. What in God's name could possibly be worse than this? Worse than 13 seconds, a Music City miracle, and 3 Super Bowl losses. I raise you Super Bowl 25. We've discussed 3 Super Bowls, so far being 26 to 28. As you all remember, the Bills lost all 3 of those in heartbreaking blowout fashion. So, what makes this one head and shoulders above every moment in Buffalo Bills history? That's easy. The ending. But a familiar foe made this one hurt pretty badly as well. Enter Bill Belichick, the greatest coach and coordinator in NFL history and one of the best defensive minds of all time. Belichick was the coordinator for a powerhouse New York Giants defense that clawed its way to Super Bowl 25 through the dynasty 49ers. On the other side of the bracket, Jim Kelly and the gang were just getting the hang of that K-gun offense I mentioned earlier. No huddles, no substitution, just beating your opponent down until they can't stop you anymore. The Bills finished 13-3 in 1990 and breezed through the playoffs after a 51-3 destruction of the Raiders in the AFC Championship, making their way to their first Super Bowl in franchise history after years of struggling through the 70s and 80s. Buffalo was pretty heavily favored heading into the game as well. But Bill Belichick had a plan. His idea to stop the K-gun offense was entirely reliant on stopping explosive plays, which the Bills relied on for their offensive attack. The Giants would send out extra defensive backs to prevent deep passes and essentially just keep the Bills to short passes and running the ball. Buffalo could still gain yards against this plan, but they were forced into long, meticulous drives that would kill off any momentum of the no-huddle offense, allowing the Giants' defense to stay on top of them. While the plan was a success, Buffalo's normally fast-paced offense was held in check and were unable to find their rhythm for much of the game. Despite this, Kelly and Thomas still led several scoring drives. The Giants also scored, but on purposefully long and methodical drives to keep the Bills' offense off the field. It was obvious this plan was going to bring the game down to its final moments, and well, it did. Late in the fourth quarter, Buffalo was down 20-19 on their final drive of the game. They desperately tried to get into the end zone, but were unable, and then it came time to attempt a field goal. With just seconds left in the game, Buffalo sent out kicker Scott Norwood. The entire game, the entire season, and honestly, the entire history of the Buffalo Bills hinged on this play. Inside the uprights, and a punished franchise gets their ring. Outside, and well...
no good. Wide right.
Scott Norwood missed the kick. Wide right. One play, one missed kick changed the entire history of an NFL franchise. The Bills were so close to lifting the Lombardi, but instead had their dreams crushed by one single missed kick. This was the closest in their franchise history they've ever been to winning the big one. And with each passing year, this play seemingly has only become more painful. I think this is not only the most painful moment in Bills history, but one of the worst in NFL history as a whole. Kicker Scott Norwood has also said he's thought about this play every single day since it happened. So, the Buffalo Bills clearly have a very sizable history of rough moments, more than most teams. It was really hard to rank this list since I'm not a Bills fan, and so many of the entries on here are just that bad. But anyways, this video took me ages to make. If you liked it, as I said earlier, please drop a like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. You should go check out my Baltimore Ravens suffering tier list as well, which I'll link down below. Anyways, thanks for watching, and peace.